You see those seed packets at the garden center right now, and it's tempting to think you can squeeze in one more planting before winter really hits. But here's what most gardeners don't realize. Planting the wrong crops in November isn't just a waste of time, it's a waste of money and can actually damage your soil for spring planting. After 30 years of gardening through every season, I've learned which crops absolutely cannot survive November planting, and today I'm sharing all 20 crops you should never plant this month. We'll cover everything from obvious summer lovers to some surprising vegetables that fool even experienced gardeners. Make sure you stay for number 8, because I will uncover a crop you would never expect. And I'll also share a bonus winter gardening secret at the end of the video, which actually protects your soil, while your impatient neighbors are killing their seeds. First on our avoid list is the tomato, and I know this might disappoint folks who see greenhouse tomatoes at the store year-round. Whether you're eyeing Better Boy, Roma, or that beautiful Cherokee purple, November soil simply cannot support tomato life. Tomatoes need soil temperatures consistently above 60 degrees Fahrenheit just to germinate, and your November ground is likely sitting between 40 and 50 degrees, even in warmer zones. These plants evolved in South America's warm climates where frost never touches them. When you plant tomato seeds or transplants in November, they don't just grow slowly, they literally shut down their cellular processes. The cold soil prevents root development, and any moisture becomes a death sentence as the seeds rot before they can sprout. Even if you somehow got a seed to germinate indoors and transplanted it out, that first frost will turn those leaves black overnight. Your tomato plants need at least 65 to 85 days of warm weather to produce fruit, and counting forward from November, you're looking at January and February, our coldest months. Those heirloom seeds you've been saving deserve better than becoming expensive compost. The money you'd spend on tomato plants now could buy several pounds of storage vegetables that will actually feed you through winter. Save those tomato dreams for April and May when the soil warms up and gives them the tropical conditions they crave. Your patience will reward you with bushels of fruit instead of disappointment and dead plants. Cucumber is our second crop to absolutely avoid this November. Whether you're considering Marketmore 76 or straight 8 varieties, these vines are pure warm weather creatures that sulk when temperatures drop below 70 degrees. Cucumber seeds need soil temperatures between 65 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit to germinate properly, and your November garden won't come close to those numbers. What happens when you plant cucumber seeds in cold soil? They sit there absorbing moisture but lacking the warmth to trigger germination, essentially drowning in slow motion. The seeds develop fungal problems within days, turning into mushy disappointments instead of productive vines. Cucumbers are actually more cold sensitive than tomatoes because their large, flat leaves have no protection against frost. A single night below 50 degrees stunts their growth permanently, and anything approaching frost causes immediate cellular damage you'll see as water-soaked spots on the leaves. These plants also need long days to flower and fruit properly. November's short days signal the plants to shut down reproduction, even if you could somehow keep them warm enough to survive. Cucumber plants require 50 to 70 days of consistent warmth to produce their first harvest, putting you into the dead of winter with no chance of success. The $3 to $4 you'd spend on a packet of cucumber seeds could buy several heads of cabbage that will actually thrive in cool weather. Hold off on cucumbers until soil temperatures stay reliably above 65 degrees, typically late May or early June, depending on your zone. Third on our November no-plant list are peppers, both sweet bell varieties like California Wonder and hot types like jalapeno. Peppers are actually perennials in their native tropical habitats, which tells you everything about their temperature requirements. These plants stop growing entirely when temperatures drop below 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and November nights regularly dip into the 30s and 40s across most growing zones. Pepper seeds won't even attempt germination below 60 degrees. An optimal sprouting requires 80 to 85 degree soil. When you plant pepper seeds in cold November soil, they absorb water but can't activate their enzymes for germination, leading to seed rot within a week. Even established pepper plants from summer will die at the first kiss of frost, their leaves turning black and dropping within hours. The cellular structure of pepper plants contains no antifreeze compounds like cold-hardy vegetables possess. November's short days compound the problem since peppers need at least 14 hours of daylight to flower and set fruit properly. Your November-planted pepper would need to survive until May just to start flowering, an impossibility in outdoor conditions. Growing peppers requires a full 60 to 90 days of warm weather from transplant to first harvest, and that's with ideal summer conditions. Smart gardeners are actually pulling their pepper plants right now, not planting new ones. Save your pepper budget for spring and invest in cold, hardy greens that will actually produce food this winter. Fourth on our November avoid list is eggplant, whether you're drawn to the classic Black Beauty or the slender Japanese Ichiban variety. Eggplants are even more cold-sensitive than their nightshade cousins tomatoes and peppers, originally coming from India where frost is unknown. These plants require soil temperatures above 70 degrees just to consider germinating, and they grow best when soil stays between 75 and 85 degrees. Your November soil is probably 30 to 40 degrees colder than what eggplant seeds need to sprout. When eggplant seeds sit in cold, wet soil, they don't just fail to germinate, they actually begin decomposing within 72 hours. The seed coat breaks down, fungi invade, and you're left with nothing but expensive organic matter. Eggplants are so frost-tender that even temperatures in the low 40s cause permanent damage to their vascular system. The plants literally can't move water and nutrients when it's cold, causing wilting that looks like drought stress even in wet soil. November's combination of cold soil, short days, and frequent rain creates the perfect storm of failure for eggplants. These tropical natives need 100 to 120 days of sustained heat to produce their glossy purple fruits, making November planting a guaranteed path to disappointment. Even in the warmest zones, November lacks the intense summer heat eggplants crave for proper fruit development. Put away those eggplant seeds until May when soil temperatures climb back into their comfort zone. Okra takes fifth place on our list of November planting disasters, and varieties like Clemson Spineless or Burgundy won't change that fact. This African native requires blazing heat that November simply cannot provide anywhere in North America. Okra seeds refuse to germinate in soil below 65 degrees, and they really want 75 to 95 degree temperatures to sprout vigorously. November soil temperatures make okra seeds think they're being stored in a refrigerator, not planted in a garden. The seeds will absorb moisture and swell, but lack the heat trigger to begin growing, rotting instead within 5 to 7 days. Okra's tropical genetics mean it has zero cold tolerance, with growth stopping completely at 50 degrees and death occurring at the first hint of frost. These plants evolved in regions where the coldest night might hit 70 degrees, not the 30s and 40s common in November. Even if you could somehow protect okra from frost, the short days of late fall prevent proper flowering since okra needs long, hot days to set pods. A November-planted okra would need to survive through winter into next July before producing its first harvest, an impossibility outdoors. The plant's large leaves and tender stems have no defense against cold, turning to black mush after exposure to temperatures below 40 degrees. Your okra growing dreams need to wait until soil temperatures stabilize above 70 degrees, typically late May or June. Focus on cold season crops now and save okra for when summer heat returns. Sixth on our list of November planting failures is sweet corn, including popular varieties like Silver Queen and Golden Bantam. Corn is a warm season grass that completely shuts down when soil temperatures drop below 50 degrees, and November soil rarely gets that warm even on sunny days. Corn kernels need consistent soil temperatures between 60 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit to germinate properly, with the sweet spot around 77 degrees. Plant corn in November's cold soil, and those expensive seeds won't germinate at all. They'll absorb water and begin fermenting like poorly stored grain. The cold, wet conditions of November cause corn seeds to develop multiple fungal diseases within days of planting. Even if a kernel somehow sprouted, corn seedlings have zero frost tolerance and die immediately when temperatures hit 32 degrees. Corn also requires full summer sun and long days to develop properly, needing at least 14 hours of daylight to maximize photosynthesis and ear development. November offers barely 10 hours of weak sunlight that can't support corn's massive energy needs. Sweet corn varieties need 60 to 100 days of warm weather from planting to harvest, which would put your theoretical harvest date somewhere in February, our coldest time. The nitrogen that corn demands from soil is also largely unavailable in cold weather when soil microbes go dormant. Don't waste good corn seed on impossible November planting when you could be growing nitrogen-fixing cover crops that actually improve your soil for next year's corn crop. Now, if you're finding this video helpful so far, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us reach more gardeners like yourself, who would also find it so helpful to avoid these mistakes. All right, let's keep going. Number 7 brings us to basil, and it doesn't matter if you choose Genovese, sweet Thai, or lemon varieties, they're all doomed in November. Basil might be the most cold-sensitive herb in your entire garden, turning black and dying at temperatures that barely bother lettuce. This Mediterranean native needs soil temperatures above 70 degrees to germinate, and air temperatures consistently above 50 degrees just to survive. November conditions kill basil faster than almost any other garden plant, with leaves blackening at 38 degrees and complete death at 32 degrees. When you plant basil seeds in cold November soil, they won't even attempt to sprout, instead rotting away within 3 to 4 days. The seeds are programmed to wait for warmth that signals Mediterranean summer, not the approaching winter of North America. Even if you started basil indoors and transplanted it out, the shock of cold November nights would kill it before roots could establish. Basil's tender stems contain about 90% water with no antifreeze proteins, so they burst like frozen pipes when temperatures drop. The plant's essential oil production, which gives basil its amazing flavor, completely stops below 60 degrees, meaning cold-stressed basil tastes like nothing even if it survives. Your basil planting should wait until nighttime temperatures stay reliably above 50 degrees and soil warms to at least 65, typically late May or early June. Spend November planting cold hardy herbs like sage and thyme that actually improve with cool weather. Watermelon claims spot number 8, and whether you're dreaming of crimson sweet or sugar baby November, planting guarantees failure on multiple levels. Watermelons need absolutely blazing soil temperatures between 70 and 95 degrees to germinate, making November's 40 to 50 degree soil feel like permafrost to these African natives. But here's what most gardeners don't realize about watermelon failure. The seeds don't just refuse to sprout in cold soil, they actually begin breaking down chemically within 48 hours. The complex sugars in watermelon seeds start fermenting in cold, wet conditions, creating alcohol compounds that poison the embryo before it can develop. Even if you could magically maintain warm soil, watermelons need 3 to 4 months of consistent heat above 70 degrees to develop their massive fruits. November planting would require your watermelons to survive until March, just to begin growing, then continue through April and May to produce fruit. Watermelon vines are basically giant water tubes with no cold protection, and a single night at 40 degrees causes irreversible cellular damage throughout the plant. The vines also need intense summer sun to convert energy into sugar, requiring at least 8 hours of direct sunlight daily just to maintain basic functions. November's weak sun and short days can't support a plant that evolved in the endless summer of equatorial Africa. Those $3 seed packets would be better spent on row cover for crops that can actually grow through winter. Ninth on our November never plant list is pumpkin, including carving varieties like jack-o'-lantern and heirloom types like Cinderella. Pumpkins belong to the same family as watermelons and share their complete intolerance for cold weather. These sprawling vines need soil temperatures between 65 and 85 degrees to germinate, while November soil sits 20 to 30 degrees too cold for any sprouting activity. Pumpkin seeds planted in November's cold, wet soil don't remain dormant, waiting for spring. They actually begin decomposing within a week as soil bacteria break down their protective coating. The seeds become soft and mushy, attracting pill bugs and other decomposers that finish the job. Pumpkins require an incredibly long growing season of 90 to 120 days of warm weather, meaning November planted pumpkins would need to survive until late February before even starting to grow. The massive leaves that pumpkins use to fuel their growth have zero frost protection and turn to black slime after a single freezing night. Even in frost-free zones, November's short days prevent pumpkins from developing properly since they need 10 to 12 hours of strong sunlight for photosynthesis. Pumpkin vines are actually programmed to die after detecting day lengths shorter than 12 hours, part of their natural annual cycle. Your pumpkin patch dreams need to wait until late May, when soil warms and frost danger passes completely. November is the time to clean up old pumpkin vines, not plant new ones. Squash, particularly summer varieties like Black Beauty and Golden Zucchini, takes our 10th spot for November planting failures. Summer squash earned its name for good reason. These plants absolutely require summer's heat to function. Zucchini and other summer squashes need soil temperatures above 60 degrees just to consider germinating, with 70 to 85 degrees being ideal for vigorous growth. November soil temperatures cause squash seeds to sit dormant while absorbing water, eventually splitting open and rotting rather than sprouting. The broad, tender leaves of squash plants work like solar panels that need intense sun to power the plant's rapid growth. November's weak sunlight can't provide enough energy for squash plants to maintain basic cellular functions, much less produce their prolific fruits. These plants evolved in Central America, where the coldest winter day might hit 60 degrees, not the freezing temperatures common across North America in November. Squash plants actually begin shutting down growth at 50 degrees and suffer permanent damage at 35 degrees, well before actual frost hits. A single cool November night can stunt squash growth so severely that the plant never recovers, even if warmer weather returns. Summer squash varieties need 45 to 60 days of consistent warmth to begin producing, putting your theoretical harvest in January's deep freeze. The $5 you'd spend on squash seeds could buy several pounds of winter squash from the farmer's market that you can actually eat this winter. Coming in at number 11 are melons like cantaloupe and honeydew, including popular varieties such as Hale's Best and Ambrosia. Melons might be the most heat-demanding crops in your entire garden, requiring soil temperatures above 70 degrees for seeds to break dormancy. November's cold soil acts like a refrigerator to melon seeds, preserving them in suspended animation until they eventually succumb to fungal attack. These desert natives from ancient Persia and Africa never experienced cold in their evolutionary history, leaving them completely defenseless against frost. Melon vines contain about 95% water with no antifreeze compounds, so they literally freeze solid when temperatures drop below 32 degrees. But frost isn't the only November enemy for melons, as these plants also need long, hot days to develop their signature sweetness. The sugars in melons only develop when leaves photosynthesize in temperatures above 75 degrees for extended periods. November's short, cool days can't trigger the complex biochemical processes that convert starches to the sugars that make melons worth growing. Melons typically need 75 to 100 days of summer heat from planting to harvest, which would put November planted melons ready for picking in February or March. The root systems of melon plants also shut down in cold soil, unable to absorb nutrients even if they're abundant. Save your melon seeds for June planting, when soil temperatures stabilize in their preferred range and summer heat can develop those incredible flavors. Bean plants, particularly green bean varieties like Blue Lake and Provider, land at number 12 on our November Don't Plant list. Despite Provider being marketed as a cold-tolerant variety, it still can't handle November's harsh conditions. Bean seeds are especially vulnerable to cold, wet soil because they split open during germination, exposing the tender cotyledons to soil pathogens. In November's 40 to 50 degree soil, bean seeds absorb water but can't generate the metabolic heat needed to sprout, leading to seed rot within 4 to 6 days. The nitrogen-fixing bacteria that beans depend on also go dormant in cold soil, meaning even if beans sprouted, they couldn't form the root partnerships that make them valuable garden plants. Green beans evolved in Central and South America, where soil temperatures rarely drop below 60 degrees, their minimum germination threshold. These plants have absolutely no frost tolerance, with leaves turning to brown mush after exposure to 33-degree temperatures. Bean plants also need warm soil to transport nutrients from roots to leaves, with this process nearly stopping when soil drops below 55 degrees. Even bush beans, which mature faster than pole varieties, need 50 to 60 days of frost-free growing to produce a harvest. November planting would require beans to survive until January before producing any food, an impossibility given their tropical origins. Direct your November garden efforts toward planting fava beans instead, which actually thrive in cool weather and fix nitrogen for your spring garden. Sweet potato earns position 13, and premium varieties like Beauregard and Covington are just as doomed as any others in November. Sweet potatoes aren't actually potatoes at all, but tropical morning glory relatives that demand serious heat. These plants need soil temperatures consistently above 70 degrees just to form roots from their slips. And November soil feels like an Arctic wasteland to these tropical natives. When you plant sweet potato slips in cold November ground, they don't just fail to grow. They begin rotting from the cut ends within 72 hours. The tubers that sweet potatoes form underground require 4 to 5 months of warm weather to develop, making November planting possibly the worst timing imaginable. Sweet potatoes are so cold sensitive that soil below 55 degrees triggers a stress response that converts their starches to sugars as a survival mechanism, ruining their storage quality. The vines die instantly at frost, turning black and slimy overnight when temperatures hit 32 degrees. Even in zones without frost, November's short days prevent sweet potatoes from photosynthesizing enough energy to form tubers. These plants evolved near the equator, where day length stays consistent and temperatures never drop below 60 degrees. Sweet potato slips cost significantly more than seeds, often $5 to $10 per slip, making November planting an expensive mistake. Your sweet potato growing should wait until soil temperatures stay above 65 degrees for at least 2 weeks, typically late May or early June. Peanut takes spot 14 on our November planting disaster list, whether you're considering Valencia or Virginia jumbo varieties. Most gardeners don't realize peanuts are actually tropical legumes from South America that require 4 to 5 months of consistently hot weather to develop their underground pods. Peanuts need soil temperatures between 65 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit for germination, and they grow best when soil stays above 70 degrees throughout their long season. November soil temperatures make peanut seeds think they're being stored for next year, not planted for growth. The seeds will absorb moisture but lack the heat trigger to activate germination, rotting within a week as soil fungi attack the softened seed coat. Peanuts have an unusual growing habit where flowers must push into soil to form pods, requiring loose, warm earth that November's cold, compacted ground can't provide. These plants need sandy soil that drains quickly and warms easily. the opposite of November's cold, waterlogged conditions. Even if peanuts could somehow sprout, they require 120 to 150 frost-free days to mature, putting harvest time in March or April, when spring planting should begin. The calcium that peanuts desperately need for pod development is also chemically unavailable in cold soil where biological activity is stopped. Peanut seeds are expensive, often costing $10 to $15 per pound, making November planting a costly error that yields nothing but disappointment. Sunflower ranks 15th, and impressive varieties like Mammoth Gray Stripe or Colorful Autumn Beauty won't overcome November's hostility. Sunflowers might seem tough with their sturdy stalks, but they're actually warm-season annuals that sulk in cold weather. These North American natives require soil temperatures between 55 and 75 degrees to germinate, with November's 40-degree soil stopping them cold before they start. Sunflower seeds planted in November's wet, cold conditions don't remain viable waiting for spring. Instead, they begin decomposing as their oil-rich interior becomes rancid. The seed's high-fat content makes them especially vulnerable to cold soil fungi that penetrate the hull within days. Sunflowers are programmed to grow rapidly in response to lengthening days, but November's shortening daylight triggers dormancy signals instead of growth. These plants need full summer sun for at least 6 to 8 hours daily to power their impressive height and massive flower heads. November provides maybe 4 hours of weak sunshine that can't support a plant designed to track the sun across long summer days. Even dwarf sunflower varieties need 60 to 90 days of warm weather to bloom, which would put November-planted sunflowers flowering in February's freezing temperatures. The thick stalks that make sunflowers appear hardy are actually full of water with no frost protection, splitting open like burst pipes when temperatures drop below freezing. Your sunflower seeds will grow much better planted directly in warm May soil than rotting in November's cold ground. Our 16th November failure, a repeat entry worth emphasizing, includes okra varieties like Emerald and Jambalaya that gardeners might think are different from standard types. Some gardeners believe these newer varieties have better cold tolerance, but that's simply marketing mythology. All okra varieties share the same tropical African genetics that make cold weather their absolute enemy. Emerald okra might produce tender pods, and Jambalaya might offer unique coloring, but both shut down completely when temperatures drop below 50 degrees. These varieties still demand the same blazing soil temperatures above 70 degrees that all okra requires for germination. The supposedly improved varieties actually tend to be more expensive than standard types, making November planting an even costlier mistake. Okra's taproot system, which can extend 6 feet deep in summer, can't penetrate November's cold, compacted soil beyond a few inches. The plant's mucilaginous sap, which gives okra its unique texture, actually thickens in cold temperatures like motor oil, preventing nutrient transport throughout the plant. These specialty varieties often cost twice as much as standard okra seeds, sometimes reaching $8 to $10 per packet. November's combination of cold soil, short days, and wet conditions creates a triple threat that no okra variety can overcome. Whether you're planting heirloom or hybrid, standard or specialty, all okra varieties belong on the absolute don't plant list for November. Dahlia tubers claim spot 17, and even spectacular varieties like Café au lait or Bishop of Llandaff can't survive November planting. Many gardeners don't realize that dahlias are tender perennials from Mexico and Central America with zero frost tolerance. These tubers need soil temperatures consistently above 60 degrees to begin sprouting, while November soil hovers 20 degrees too cold for any growth activity. When you plant dahlia tubers in cold, wet November soil, they don't go dormant like hardy bulbs. They begin rotting from the inside out. The tubers absorb excess moisture but can't process it without warmth. turning into mushy, foul-smelling masses within 2 weeks. Dahlias are actually so cold-sensitive that experienced gardeners are digging them up right now for winter storage, not planting new ones. The crown of the tuber, where new shoots emerge, is especially vulnerable to cold damage and rots first in November conditions. Even if a tuber somehow survived until spring, the cold storage would damage its cellular structure, preventing proper sprouting when warmth returns. Dahlia tubers often cost $15 to $25 each for premium varieties, making November planting an incredibly expensive way to create compost. These Mexican natives need consistent warmth from planting through first frost, typically requiring planting in May for summer blooms. Your November dahlia budget would be better spent on hardy spring bulbs like daffodils or tulips that actually benefit from winter cold. Marigold sits at number 18, and neither French nor African varieties can handle November planting despite their reputation for toughness. These cheerful annuals might seem indestructible in summer gardens, but they're actually tender tropicals that die at the first touch of frost. Marigold seeds need soil temperatures between 65 and 75 degrees to germinate, making November's cold soil an impossible environment for sprouting. When marigold seeds sit in cold, wet November soil, their thin seed coats quickly break down, exposing the embryo to fatal fungal infections. These plants evolved in Mexico and Central America, where freezing temperatures simply don't exist, leaving them completely defenseless against cold. Marigolds actually begin suffering cellular damage at 40 degrees, well before frost arrives, with leaves developing purple discoloration as anthocyanins form in response to cold stress. The essential oils that give marigolds their pest-repelling properties only develop in warm weather above 65 degrees, meaning cold-stressed plants lose their main garden benefit. Even if protected from frost, marigolds need long days with intense sunlight to trigger flowering, the opposite of November's short, weak light conditions. These annuals typically need 45 to 60 days from seed to bloom in ideal conditions, which would put November-planted marigolds flowering in January's deep cold. Marigold seeds are cheap, but November planting wastes both seeds and valuable garden space that could support cold-hardy flowers like pansies or snapdragons. Lettuce lands at number 19, and even cold-tolerant varieties like buttercrunch and romaine face serious challenges with November planting. Now you might be thinking lettuce is a cool season crop, and you're partially right, but November planting creates unique problems most gardeners don't anticipate. While lettuce can handle light frost, November-planted seeds face a different enemy entirely, increasingly short days that trigger premature bolting responses. When lettuce germinates in day lengths under 10 hours, it programs itself to flower quickly rather than forming proper heads. Your November-planted lettuce might sprout in the cold, but it will bolt straight to seed as soon as days begin lengthening in late winter, giving you bitter, inedible leaves instead of sweet hearts. The wet conditions common in November also promote bottom rot and downy mildew that destroy young lettuce before it can establish. Lettuce seeds germinate slowly in cold soil, taking 3 weeks instead of 1 week, leaving them vulnerable to soil pathogens much longer than spring-planted crops. The freeze-thaw cycles common in late fall cause lettuce roots to heave from the soil, breaking their connection to nutrients and water. Even if your lettuce survives winter, it will be stunted and bitter compared to lettuce planted at proper times. Most successful winter lettuce is actually planted in early September to establish before cold weather, not started from seed in November. Your lettuce craving would be better satisfied by purchasing established transplants from a greenhouse, or waiting until late February to start seeds indoors for spring planting. Finally, at number 20, we have carrot, including popular varieties like Nantes and Danvers 126 that might tempt November gardeners. Carrots are technically cool season crops, but November planting fails for several critical reasons that even experienced gardeners overlook. Carrot seeds are notoriously slow germinators even in ideal conditions, taking 14 to 21 days in warm soil, but up to 40 days in November's cold ground. This extended germination period in wet conditions causes most carrot seeds to rot before sprouting, wasting both seeds and precious garden space. November's heavy rains and snow create a soil crust that tiny carrot seedlings can't penetrate, even if they manage to germinate. The freeze-thaw cycles common in late fall cause soil to expand and contract, crushing delicate carrot taproots before they can develop properly. Carrots actually need consistent soil temperatures between 45 and 85 degrees for proper root development, but November swings wildly between day and night temperatures. When carrot roots try to grow in cold soil, they develop forked, hairy, bitter roots instead of the sweet, straight carrots you're expecting. The soil compaction from winter rain and snow prevents carrots from pushing down, causing stubby, misshapen roots that crack and split. While carrots can survive frost once established, November-planted seeds won't develop enough to survive winter, making this timing a complete waste. Smart gardeners plant carrots in August for winter harvest or wait until March for spring crops, avoiding November's impossible growing conditions. And now for the bonus tip gardeners swear by for protecting their soil when they can't plant. Instead of leaving your beds bare while others fail with November planting, here's what successful gardeners do. They plant Austrian winter peas mixed with crimson clover right now as a living mulch system. This combination fixes nitrogen all winter, while the peas' strong roots break up compacted soil, and the clover's dense growth suppresses weeds completely. The magic happens underground, where these legumes feed beneficial bacteria that stay active even at 35 degrees, preparing your soil for explosive spring growth. By March, you'll have added 40 to 60 pounds of nitrogen per acre naturally, worth about $50 in organic fertilizer. Simply chop this green manure down 3 weeks before spring planting and watch your summer crops grow twice as vigorously as your neighbors who left beds empty or worse tried planting summer crops in November. Thanks for sticking with me through the entire video. If you found this helpful, give it a like, subscribe for more gardening tips, and check out our other videos on growing a better garden.